You're listening to Graphic Novel Explorers Club podcast, an audio book club.
Greetings, explorers. I'm one of your hosts, Johnny, joined by...
the amazing Dennis.
Dennis Man.
Yes. Web of Dennis. Wait.
And no Frankie today, but we are discussing Life Story by Chip Zdarsky with art by, or I guess pencils, by Mark Bagley. We hope you've already read today's title because all three of us have read the book, so beware. I shouldn't say three of us. The two of us have read the book. I'm not reading this from a script.
I'm Ron Burgundy.
Yeah. And go fuck yourself, San Diego. So beware, spoilers ahead. Explorers can share their opinions and thoughts with us by leaving a comment on our Facebook page or over on Twitter and Instagram at GN Explorers Club.
Can I just say that, not related to the book at all, well, very minor related, but Chip Zdarsky is probably the most amazing name ever.
It's so bland with such a weird name to follow, like
right.
Chip
Right.
Zdarsky.
Right, exactly.
So this book came out 2018, I believe.
Yeah, it's pretty recent, and it covers pretty much, it's written by Peter Parker himself, right?
Yeah.
Wait, this is a work of fiction?
Yeah, like the Bible.
Yeah. But
I can make those kinds of comments because Frankie's not here.
Oh, right. Yeah, it covers a good portion of the major arcs throughout Spider-Man's run.
With the twist.
Yes,
With
absolutely.
with the big twist.
But not with a what-if twist where he dies, immediately.
Yeah. No, I as I was reading it, I'm not as familiar with the Capes and Cowls storylines as Dennis is. And there was things I was aware of and how they twisted them, especially the Gwen Stacy storyline.
Well, some of it, especially the middle arc, the dealing with the clones, that was when I'm familiar with it, but that was during the 90s. And in the 90s, I was concerned with college and parties, and I kind of dropped out of comic books. So I was familiar with the plot line, but the whole clone saga, and Gwen Stacy's a clone, and Peter Parker's a clone, and is the Peter Parker we've been reading about actually been the clone and really the
Which
real...
happened in the real storyline, right? Like,
exactly.
Or what's the main 616? Is that the main? Yeah, in that universe, because Ben Reilly...
Exactly.
And there was a lot of confusion over who...
Right, and then at first maybe Ben was like, oh, maybe I'm the real Peter Parker and you're the clone kind of thing, which actually got confusing in this book too.
Yeah, until the end.
Yeah.
So the story is a contained series covering the entirety of Spider-Man Peter Parker's life, which I have often said, like, that's a big reason I don't read Capes and Cowls, because the shit never ends.
Right.
It's just this purgatory that these poor characters are stuck in.
Right. Batman is always 35.
Yeah.
Yet Nightwing, ages up to a point, and then he's stuck at 22 or something.
Yeah. And so, it starts off a few years after he had been bitten. So he's already been Spider-Man for a few years. He's in college. And a big thing that shocked me, and I don't think this is covered, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dennis, is how much the Vietnam War plays into this series. It starts in the 60s and wraps up in 2019.
So, to repeat what you were saying earlier, this is unique in the sense, it's similar to What If, where they take the story to its natural ending, where characters age normally. So, unlike normal comics, they're not stuck in this age thing. And one of the great things that I thought is it starts in 1966 and Vietnam War becomes a big thing. And it made me think. I remember, obviously, The Watchmen, right? Watchmen focuses a lot on the Vietnam War and what's going on there. But come to think of it, I don't know if the comics of that time period ever dealt with the Vietnam War.
Not like they did World War II, where it was like this clear cut.
And super involved, where you had,
and they even,
Sergeant Rock and various and they had comic.
Well, even in this comic book, he talks about how, Captain America fought World War II. It was a clear thing the Nazis were bad guys.
Right.
Whereas this one, it's a little bit more gray, and you come to find out Captain America, he's in country for too long and winds up realizing, I need to defend both sides.
Which is great.
Yeah, I don't want soldiers killing civilians, and I don't want civilians being killed, and then their families deciding to side with the quote-unquote bad guys.
Right.
And watch the Ken Burns documentary on Vietnam. It shines a whole new light on the Vietnamese people and the Viet Cong and why they were fighting. They saw it as a civil war, whereas we just wanted to protect the opium trade.
pretty much. And then, what I loved about it is it had echoes of The Watchmen in the sense of it's like, well, what are the superheroes going to do? And that's a legitimate question.
And Peter's very torn over what I have, because of what Uncle Ben said to him. He has this torment over, I have these abilities. Captain America's over there fighting. What should I be doing?
Captain America, initially in the story, they kept questioning him, like, are you going to enter the war? I mean, you're Captain America. Shouldn't you be over there?
Yeah.
And it really does call into question, if we had a real life situation where you had these superpowers, how would it affect our wars? Why are you putting normal civilians in danger when you could have the X-Men or the Avengers just go over there and kind of bust things up? Although it's not as easy as that. There's a lot of pictures of like a camouflaged Iron Man and a Giant Man going over there, like getting the Viet Cong. But obviously they didn't end the war right away.
He is almost with Doc Ock.
Yeah.
The other protagonist, I'd say he's the protagonist, is Tony Stark.
Right.
In the series, I was really shocked at, like, I don't know, other than the movies, I don't know jack shit about the comic book character. In the Marvel movies, he's portrayed as like the, what does he say, the billionaire, playboy genius, where, he's kind of a bad boy, but he's not really an evil person.
Right.
Whereas in this, he's very, very much a capitalist. He wants do a hostile takeover of Peter Parker's company. He has no problems with being like basically an arms manufacturer.
Right.
He's not content with turning his business into a peacetime business. It's very much, we need conflict to make money.
Right.
And
it's really true to the character. I mean, whereas in the movies, Tony Stark's like, oh yeah, why are we making these weapons? And then has kind of a epiphany moment.
Yeah.
Tony Stark in the comics, really, they kept making weapons. They kept they kept making armor for like the U.S. government.
And he's very much an oligarch because he winds up using his influence to eventually become Secretary of State or something like that in this comic book, which was really interesting to see. Like to paint him in such a bad light.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, pure capitalist. Yeah. And you think about it, Tony Stark, as written in the comics, if you take it to its natural evolution, would become like that. He's not really a good guy.
Yeah.
I just loved how they involved Flash Thompson, which is true. Flash,
he winds up enlisting,
which is not drafting. Interesting. Like I didn't quite understand how they weren't drafted.
Well, because if you
were in college.
If you were in college, you can get a deferment. If you had certain family issues, you can get a deferment. Or if you had some sort of physical or mental disability, then you were deferred. And everybody else was up for the draft, and they did it based on your birthday. There was a couple other things.
Gotcha.
And I think once a month they would do it on TV, actually. And if the numbers came up that like I think had your birth year with the month or something, I don't know exactly how it works, but it was basically like the California lottery ball drop thing.
That sounds like what's that Mockingbird movie?
Oh,
the one with the post-apocalyptic.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Dumb and Dumber, where there's Ma, King, Bird.
No, but where they draw them out. But anyway, so I really like the Flash Thompson dialogue for a couple reasons. One, it really shows how they're really leaning into the whole, like, these are living characters in this storyline where they don't just get over things really quick.
Yeah.
So Peter still harbors a lot of emotional
from being bullied
by Flash in high school. So he's kind of short with Flash and tries to kind of discount.
He almost like goes after him.
Oh yeah.
They're at a bar where they're having a goodbye because he's leaving the next day for Vietnam, and Peter gets up in his face, and then at this point he's now been dating Gwen Stacy for like a year or two. They're in college, and she kind of reels him back and is like, hey, you need to calm down. Like, what are you? He's leaving. He might die. We might not ever see this guy again. And he like has this like, you're right. And they go over and talk. I thought that was a beautiful moment where him and Flash.
And with Flash, like,
it's very apologetic and
then like shows his maturity. And Flash has actually looked up to Spider-Man, ironically enough. And his speech about if Spider-Man can be a hero, then I can do this the right thing. And I just thought it was a great moment in that. Like, you wish you could have seen something like that in the comic book.
Yeah, and then it skips ahead to the 70s, and at this point he's now out of college.
Works with Reed Richards, right?
Yeah, and Reed's kind of a dick. Is that how he is in the comics too?
Well, okay, so once again, another great thing about this in terms of like taking things to its natural progression. So Reed has been left by the Invisible Woman because she went with Namor, which was a comic book line. But eventually she came back. But in this one, she doesn't.
She doesn't, yeah.
And he's older.
Well, and he's like, I get the sense of he's almost like Dr. Manhattan, where he's so detached from humanity, and at different points, Peter Parker calls him out on it. Like, you have all this wonderful technology you don't share with anybody. And Reed counter argues, like, especially like his clothing technology, why he doesn't do that. And I was like, all right, whatever.
But I actually really like Reed's reasoning, not because I thought it was totally justified, but once again, comic book logic. It's my problem with Batman and Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne is such a millionaire, and you always see him at charity events or whatever in the comic book. But really, if he had that kind of money, he pretty much could make over Gotham. Well, and Gotham would not be a crime-ridden city.
Yeah, he could, instead of putting millions of dollars into creating a Batmobile, the Bat computer, the Bat submarine, the Bat helicopter, if he just took a fraction of that money and is like, look, I'm going to subsidize housing in these areas.
Right, exactly.
I'll
education, free college for everyone.
Yeah, I'll buy all
University.
The textbooks for these schools.
He could even do it while still being Batman, but I agree, if he funneled that even more so money. So that's always the fundamental problem with comics, right? Like, they have these abilities, they have all this technology, yet they
just use and that's a big criticism in this book, is like, and Peter has a self-realized thing where, like, we just fight each other, like we're not doing anything, and Tony Stark makes that argument, and I kind of agreed with him, where he was like, we create these problems in society, like we're destroying buildings, where if we just register and like agree to these rules,
no, it's true. And so I loved Reed's thing where he talks about, well, if we gave the technology, then what about the textile industry? All these people would be out of a job. Yeah. Of course, you could make the argument, well, then you could retrain them.
Yeah, and there wouldn't be like the slave labor around textiles, and there wouldn't be so much garbage. You know, like, was it like outfits get worn?
Once. Like, you would have the ultimate, like, reusable clothing. But, you know, once again, that's where the superhero logic, the world of that, falls apart when it meets the real world. But I love that they talk about that. But the 70s is interesting because it's Studio 54 time, and I guess Harry Osborn, Norman Osborn's son, who Norman currently has amnesia but is slowly regaining his memory of being the Green Goblin. Harry is coked out at Studio 54.
And you meet Mary Jane too,
who's his kind of,
and she's clearly partying it up, too. Like, her and Harry are somewhat like in a relationship, where it seems to be just chemically dependent relationship, where they're just partying and drinking, doing drugs, uppers and downers,
which once again totally matches like the real world, where Mary Jane was always into the high fashion, was always into that life. But the comic book always kept her like this safe Mormon version of that life.
She was a party girl that didn't drink.
Somehow.
Or
hung around all these people, the Studio 54 coke
and abstained.
But in the real world,
she would have been giving Mick Jagger a blowjob.
Exactly. So in some ways, spoiler alert, you don't actually see that scene, but so if you're looking
it's implied. It's implied.
But she totally would be into that world. So, and I love that because, that's, if you're going to be part of that kind of scene at that time period, that's what you would be doing. And I love her calling out Peter, because she knows, he doesn't realize she knows, but she knows, like, look, I've seen you come out of your aunt's house. I know you're Spider-Man. I know you have these powers.
And Norman Osborn made the same determination too. He kind of figured out who Spider-Man was.
And so she's like, but what do you do with your powers? You know, you could have saved Flash, who, spoiler alert, dies in Vietnam. And she calls him out, rightfully so. You know?
And then there's some stuff that happens with Harry eventually becoming the Black Goblin, which I love the design on that. I thought it was so cool looking.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because normally I thought he became the Hobgoblin.
Yeah, he's the orange guy with like the blue.
But this one, he becomes the Black Goblin, which totally loved that.
Looked really cool. I was like, oh, they need to incorporate that into the main story arc. Yeah, and you find out that there's some stuff with cloning going on. I don't want to give it away because it carries on throughout the series, this clone issue.
But the clone issue actually, once again, was another one of those big Spider-Man stories in the regular comic book. So I just love everything they touch upon, the various villains, the various stuff happens in the regular comics. They just give it a twist, like you said. So
like when Stacy never dies from
Right.
falling off the bridge.
Right, exactly. And then he eventually meets Kraven, and Kraven hunts him down, shoots him, and just like in the comic book, and then the alien symbiote black spider suit comes and gets Spider-Man.
Yeah, and this is in the 80s.
Right, in the 80s. And then Spider-Man basically becomes a symbiote Spider-Man and attacks Kraven in a very Venom-like fashion.
Yeah.
And they have a battle, and then Mary Jane saves them.
I don't know if this is how the symbiote came to be with Spider-Man, but in this, they're fighting like an off-world war.
That's exact Secret Wars.
Yeah, and there's some machine that can generate anything that you think would. It's like on a subconscious level, this is what I need to win this battle, and that creates this symbiote for him.
Yeah, that's exactly the Secret Wars, which was a huge Marvel event because not only did it involve the comics, but it also involved toy lines and all sorts of stuff. And yeah, that was where it was created. They totally basically have a nod to the actual comic origins of that.
Yeah. And then during the 90s, Peter has created Parker Industries. He never follows really the journalist photographer route.
Which makes sense once again. And he actually eventually did that in the comics. If you're that smart of a kid, you're not going to be the photographer forever. You're going.
Well, he gets called out. I think Mary Jane calls him out like, "Why are you doing this? You're a gifted scientist. You're incredibly smart. Why are you doing this shit?"
Right.
And that kind of gets him out of his, wakes him up, and he starts Parker Industries.
Right. You know, he's just as not as smart, but he's pretty smart compared to like Tony Stark and Reed Richards.
And then you come to find out that Doc Ock and Aunt May,
that was weird,
had dated, and then
I wanted to look back to see if that ever really happened.
I thought it did.
That's just weird.
Maybe not that time frame, but I thought, and she looks so much. It could be like a Barbara Bush and George Bush thing,
right?
Where
no, totally.
She looks significantly older than him,
right?
But which is fine. Maybe he likes older women.
And it's great that the characters are slowly aging.
Like for the cover introduction to this, the 90s timeline, they do a thing where Spider-Man's supposed to be on a building and his reflection looks like his younger self, but the actual one, he's a little chubbier.
Right. And he's slowly modifying his suit, and not necessarily for selling toys like it was probably in reality, but because he's getting older.
Yeah.
So he's trying to protect himself. He obviously has technical know-how, so why wouldn't he improve his suit over time?
Yeah. Although every iteration of a Spider-Man suit just gets worse and worse looking. Or just clunkier.
Right.
There's shit on it that doesn't seem necessary.
Shoulder pads that are just like in weird spots.
Yeah.
Like you're going to cover your thigh, like this one portion of your thigh, but not your kneecap. Like your knee is probably the more vulnerable part, but you're going to cover your thigh, which is the meatiest part.
Yeah. Or like it's almost like during the Clone Wars, that cartoon when Anakin and Obi-Wan would wear like some of the clone troopers armor, but not all of it.
Like the gauntlets and like the upper torso.
Yeah. I'm like, all right, whatever. So and as the story progresses, Norman Osborn seems to go away, and then he'll come back as an antagonist. Same with Doc Ock. Well, I won't get into we won't get into it because it's actually a really good storyline. I'm like,
it pays homage to a lot of the story beats from the mainstream comic in terms of that vampire guy totally appeared in the comics. Miles Morales makes an appearance near the end, the final arc, and once again, that's how they incorporated him into the main, because he originally came from the Ultimate Spider-Man universe, and then they incorporated that, and the whole thing with Doc Ock, for those who know how he became the superior Spider-Man, that plays into it a little bit.
I feel like all these like Ultimate Spider-Man, Superior Spider-Man, all these different Spider-Mans or these other alternate universe comic lines, they're kind of like the AAA team for the 616 universe.
Right.
So if they do well, then we'll figure out a way to get them into the main main continuity.
I don't know if you've ever read it, but they also have the Spider-Verse. Well, you've seen the cartoon.
Yeah.
But that's a whole... They've done at least two major story arcs where it's like, let's take every Spider-Man from every universe, and then they become this super Spider-Man team.
And then there's at one point where he talks about, I guess I'm apparently part of some spider totem.
Right. No. And I love that too, because like some of the stuff that's taken super seriously in the mainstream comic, they kind of glaze over. Like,
yeah,
I don't understand all this stuff because they don't have time to delve into it. But it's great because the Spider Totem, which is a weird storyline that deals with a Spider-Verse story, I didn't totally get it either.
It's almost like the Flash, where when the Flash started, he was just the Flash,
right?
And there was lightning hit some chemicals, and the chemicals spilled on him, and
then becomes a Speed Force.
Yeah, now there's a Speed Force and the
Right.
Speed Ghosts and all the speed shit. It's like, come on, just. One of my favorite things in the book is when you see old man Luke Cage.
Oh yeah,
like that was
during the Civil War portion of it.
Yeah,
and then,
I loved it.
Yeah,
I was like, that's cool. He's bald headed and got a beard.
Well, I guess it's real life, but real life to their powers. So Steve Rogers maybe doesn't age because of his serum, because he doesn't look that much older. He looks older, but then not that much older.
And then the story wraps in 2019.
Right.
Spider-Man, spoiler, dies saving the Earth from Doctor Doom. There's a thing where after the Civil War, because everyone was fighting, the bad guys were able to come in and take over the world. And it seemed like Spider-Man sacrifices himself, and throughout the series, it reflects he's always having this dream about if he had saved Uncle Ben, maybe things would have been different. And it almost seems like he has this like death wish complex, of so much guilt that like, well, I have to die at some point. And then he's smiling because he's remembering his life with Mary Jane, and he's like almost in this dream state, this living dream state where he's having a conversation with them when they're much younger, or her when they're much younger, and he's smiling. But I kept thinking, is he smiling because of that, or because he's finally getting his death wish?
Lord knows he tried to die a lot of times.
Yeah.
And really, the fact that he was still alive and not totally broken and didn't need like an exoskeleton is a miracle, to be perfectly honest, considering how many battles he had to deal with.
And they talk about that too, like throughout the series, where he's like, "Oh, this is gonna hurt tomorrow." Like as he's getting older and older and older, because by the time this ends, so he would have been born in 1947.
He looks like Uncle Ben.
Yeah, he would have been almost 70 years old.
Right.
By the time this comic book series wraps up.
I mean, his spider powers do allow him to have an abnormal, like, athletic build still. At this
and
time
recovery.
Frame.
And there's a couple different times explosions happen, and the clone comes back into this. And he's like, oh yeah, if it wasn't a clone of me, he would have died.
Right.
From the force of the explosion.
Totally. So. But yeah, no, I really liked how it ended.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I really liked the ending when Mary Jane kind of passes the mantle to Miles.
Right.
No, it was a good story. I would love to see more. I would love to see more of these, but I hope Marvel's not like, oh sweet,
let's just
let's just keep this shit going forever. Like just completely invalidating and missing the point of this comic book series.
And then you're right. You wouldn't want them to flood the market with, well, here's like a bajillion versions of it. Because to be perfectly honest, in some cases, either the character would die early, or
they'd retcon all these like powerful, touching deaths and be like, well, we were able to bring Flash Thompson back because where he was buried happened to be on the side of a nuclear pit that could reanimate life if lightning hit in this one spot.
But yeah, and what I like too is it was like a what if story, but it wasn't like a super dark what if. Because the thing with the what if stories is what people don't realize sometimes is that they pretty much always end. It's like in a dark.
It's like a Twilight Zone where it never. Maybe one of them ends happily.
Right. They usually have a pretty bad ending.
Some sort of ironic twist that negates everything.
Because I think, was it the one where like, what if Uncle Ben didn't die, but then it still ended up a fucked up situation where I think like
Peter Parker dies.
Yeah, or like Aunt May dies, and so it's still on the same trajectory.
Yeah, you have to have some sort of misery in your life.
Right, exactly.
This is why Sasha watches. I joke with her. I'm like, what British misery show are you watching now? It's either Call the Midwife, The Midwife is Dying, Nurses in Death Rows. I don't know. It's all these British misery shows. I'm like, why do you like all this misery? She's like, I don't know.
We should make a board game out of that. Design your own British misery show.
Yeah, it could never end happily. But no, yeah, I like the series. I'd like to see something like this with like Batman.
Right.
You know, like let's have Batman fucking age out. Like he'd be dead now. He'd be like 100 years old now.
Or let's see exactly what he would do with his money. You know, if he wasn't busy fighting the Joker. Because, you know, part of the thing is the Joker always says, like, I don't want to kill you because this is too fun. Well, what if Bruce Wayne's like, yeah, I'm not playing this anymore. Or just outright killed him or imprisoned him in a proper prison. That's the problem with, like, Arkham Asylum. I don't know the judicial system in Gotham, but the Joker seems to get out a lot.
All of them do. You would think that at some point the state would come in and, like here in Sacramento, we have a school district here, the Sacramento School District, that had a lot of problems, and the state was like, we will take over.
Or the federal government.
We will take over. Well, the state has to do it first, but like the state would have been like, we're going to step in and take over your school system because you guys are, where's all this money disappearing to?
Right, exactly.
It's fucked up. And I think that's what would happen is wherever Gotham, whatever state Gotham is in, they would be like, look, why do you guys have all these issues going on? We're stepping in on a state level.
Right.
And then the federal government's coming behind us. You guys can't figure this shit out.
Right. We've done an audit of Arkham Asylum, and it turns out you're actually not doing your job.
Plus, I think everyone would know it was Bruce Wayne at some point.
Seriously.
Like, wait, he's got a fucking tank?
Right. Well, and especially with the number of paparazzi and phone cameras around, you're like, oh, where's Bruce Wayne going when the Joker just appeared?
Yeah. Or at the end of The Dark Knight Rises, that movie, when he kind of disappears and he lets the Robin of that world.
Right.
He's like, hey, here's the bat suit, here's all the technology.
Right.
And my friend and I were talking about, like, that guy's just a cop who probably earns like $65,000 a year. How's he gonna afford all this shit? Like, he'd be able to take out the bat pod twice, and then he's just gonna have to leave it somewhere because it ran out of gas.
Or he's gonna end up at a pawn shop. How much for this Batman?
How much for these like 20 batarangs? Yeah. Why do you have all this? Just don't ask. And every time he starts showing up, the bat costume is just more and more worn down.
Right.
He can't fix it.
Well, that's what I like about the Flashpoint Batman, where it's Thomas Wayne. He runs casinos, but he doesn't have all the fancy computers that Bruce does. He has like a stupid like regular PC. and then Barry Allen's like, where's all the tech and everything like that? It's like, what are you talking about? I can't afford all that.
Yeah, I'm just a doctor, man. I make like $150,000 a year. I get. So, what'd you think of the book overall?
Excellent. Yeah. Would recommend.
Yep, same here. I really liked it a lot. My only critique is the art. You
didn't like it?
It's so computer animated.
I know. There's something to be said about stuff that's way too clean and way too photo accurate.
It would have been cool too if they had done the art from the period of how that art looked.
I thought they were going to start doing that. The first issue seemed like that, and the covers do.
But it would look cool if it looked more like
that particular era.
The 4-dot color system, and then the 70s maybe it got a little cleaner. By the time we got to our era, it's all drawn digitally.
Well, maybe they'll remaster it and take your idea. But that's actually a really good idea.
Like, I thought that would have looked to
make them look like from that era, not just the style, but actually the print style.
The art, all of that, would have looked neat. So, all right. Well, where can people follow the podcast?
You can follow us on Insta and Twitter at Gene Explorers Club.
Cool. And we'll be back next week with Frankie. Or 2 weeks from now. We're on I forget. When we were recording this,
People don't have any sense of time when they listen to us, man. We're already dead.
Yeah,
our grandkids are like listening to this. And what do they mean 2 weeks from now?
Nate and Maddie have taken over this podcast.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Thanks for listening.
Bye.